A seasoned professional with tremendous knowledge in bronchoscopy, Dr. Nalin Joshi is a veteran interventional pulmonologist from Jaipur with more than 18 years of experience. He's an associate professor at SMS Medical College's Department of Chest Disease and TB. During his distinguished career, Dr. Joshi has been exposed to and gained experience in all aspects of COPD and interventional pulmonology. Apart from being a dedicated physician, he is also a diligent medical scholar and has been a part of various paper and case presentations, lectures, panel discussions, and conferences at the state, national, and international level. Sir, thank you so much for joining us today, and I'm
Hello.
certain we are going to be learning so much from you.
Thank you. You are so modest.
So, today we're going to talk about extrapulmonary TB. So, off the bat, the conversation we know when we think about TB is usually dominated and dictated by pulmonary TB cases. But could you tell us a little bit more about extrapulmonary TB and, what are the most common forms of extrapulmonary TB?
See, anything which is in the lungs. Lungs means the two lungs are there, the airway is there. And anything which is in the parenchyma of the lung, the tissue of the lung, it is pulmonary tuberculosis.
Mm-hmm.
Except there, everything wherever it is tuberculosis, it is extrapulmonary tuberculosis. May it be the lymph node between the lungs, may it the membrane surrounding the lungs, which is covering the lung, like we say the pleural membrane. The pleural effusion is again a type of extrapulmonary tuberculosis. May it is the tuberculosis of eye, ear, skin, breast, brain, the spine or the bone or the joint, wherever it is. They all are taken as extrapulmonary tuberculosis. Mostly 10% of the cases when you find a pulmonary tuberculosis, extrapulmonary tuberculosis is also associated there. And otherwise also in the era of HIV and in the cases wherever the immunosuppression is there, like patients who are having diabetes and other immunosuppressive diseases or some kind of immunosuppression, the meninges which are surrounding the brain, so meningitis we can call them, TB meningitis. Then we are coming to the vertebral column. It is the Pott's spine, which may sometime lead to the paraparesis, like you don't have the power in your legs, both the legs or one side or other side, or maybe above that also.
Right.
Then coming to the cervical region, the neck region, there are lymphadenopathy in the neck region or the inguinal region, or sometimes in the abdomen also, in the mediastinum also, in between the lungs. Then you can come to the pleura, it is pleural effusion. Then whatnot, in the ascites form, it is in the abdomen. In the intestine, it is abdominal tuberculosis of other variety, so on. You can, each and every body organ except one or two, you can find out tuberculosis.
I see.
And that is extrapulmonary TB.
Right. And so how is extrapulmonary TB generally diagnosed? Are the signs of extrapulmonary TB, very apparent, or is it more vague compared to pulmonary TB?
See, the constitutional sign symptoms, we call how the patient is taking something, right? He is coming to you, he is saying you that I'm having a low-grade fever, I'm not feeling good, my appetite is less, I'm losing my weight. These are taken as the constitutional symptoms, right? Sign symptoms. So these are there in every case, whether it is the pulmonary tuberculosis or extrapulmonary tuberculosis. But depending on the organ involved in EPTB, extrapulmonary TB, there are some lateralizing signs. For instance, if we take the TB iridocyclitis, which is the tuberculosis of the retinal part of the eye, then you may have patient may have a complaint of loss of vision, right? Similarly, if a patient is having pleural effusion, then he will have a chest pain, shortness of breath, and dry cough. So lateralizing signs are depending on the organ involved, number one. Number two, The constitutional symptoms are definitely there, but one who is very keen to examine or who very nicely examine the patient, it is not very difficult to find out the extrapulmonary tuberculosis. You can easily diagnose clinically.
Right. Okay. And coming to my last question, is the treatment that's prescribed for pulmonary and EPTB generally the same? And could you tell us a little bit about that?
See, if we talk about the complete management of EPTB, the difference between pulmonary TB and EPTB is that in pulmonary tuberculosis, you are directly asking a patient to give the sputum for examination. That is the key point.
Mm-hmm.
And sputum is, if sputum is having acid-fast bacilli, it is a direct evidence that patient is having tuberculosis. Now, it is very difficult to find out AFB in EPTB cases.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what to do? The first challenge is you have to establish the diagnosis.
Okay.
This is the one point. The one part of the management is you have to diagnose and establish the diagnosis. This is where most of the physicians are. They are just, writing on the clinical basis. That cannot work. Now, in this era, you have to go for the particular organ and find out the tissue yield from that. This is the era of nucleic acid amplification test. You can go and you can find out, say for instance, it's a case of pleural effusion or meningitis. You can take CSF in meningitis, pleural effusion, you can take the pleural fluid and you can set it for the analysis. You can go for ADA in both the cases. You can go for the CB0, the amplification of the nucleic acid. And by that, you can establish the diagnosis of EPTB, the variety of EPTB.
Right.
In case of lymphadenopathy, you can take a FNAC from there and histopathology will assist you to diagnose the EPTB. Number one, sometimes if you have pus, you can send it for CB0. Else you can send it for, further you can send it for LPA, or further you can send it for the mycobacterial culture and sensitivity and species identification if you need further. Because sometimes in EPTB cases, you are always having a suspicion of some atypical mycobacterial involvement. Just to rule out that, you can order a mycobacterial culture sensitivity with species identification if there are other signs and symptoms suggestive of. So one is you have to establish the diagnosis with the help of tissue, or otherwise the nucleic acid amplification or ADA, or else whatever we can do, the method. So you have to clinically prove it, radiologically prove it, histopathologically prove it, and then prove it with the PCR, CB0, ADA, whatever it is, on the basis of the tissue yield. One. Then the interesting thing is that now we don't have any, initially we had category 1, category 2, category 3. But now looking into the primary resistance, it is the one category which can be used for both.
Right.
So you can start with the same treatment as you start in pulmonary TB.
Okay, that's wonderful to know. Thank you, doctor. This is very, very insightful and you explained it so well. But it was wonderful talking to you and thank you so much for joining us for this.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.